Alright, so Commander Masters previews start tomorrow, July 11th, and I'm pretty excited as a player to see what cards are going to be announced for reprint and hopefully have their prices come down. This is the first time Wizards has ever done a Commander Masters style set, meaning we really don't know what to expect, but the past couple of years of Master sets have been quite good, so I'm a little bit optimistic. That doesn't mean, though, that it is all sunshine and rainbows with this, because there are definitely some criticisms. So today we're going to jump into the video and talk about whether or not Commander Masters looks like it's going to be worth it. Alright, thanks so much for checking out the video, guys. If you do enjoy, please hit the like button and subscribe. Be sure to click the bell icon to stay notified with new videos as they are posted. And as I teased in the intro and in the thumbnail, really what I want to look at today is whether or not Commander Masters seems worth it on the surface before we know any further reveals. Now, I will do a follow-up video to this topic as well after we know the majority of the reveals to sort of see whether or not my opinion has changed, or whether or not it looks like a worthwhile investment. But there is a lot of ground to cover, and I don't want the video to be too long just for the sake of being long, so let's get into the major points. First up, I feel like we should probably establish what the products are that you're going to be able to purchase for Commander Masters. There are, of course, going to be collector booster boxes, and much like Double Masters 2022, one collector booster box will come with 4 booster packs. Each booster pack will be worth probably about $60-ish on average, based on the pricing data we have right now. But remember, Wizards doesn't use MSRP for products anymore, so it's hard to really tell what they're supposed to be worth versus what the distributor costs are. But using the existing prices out there, they are pre-orderable on Amazon right now for around $250, which is pretty steep because that actually ends up equating out to more than $60 a pack. But on TCG Player, you can actually pre-order boxes of the collector box for about $225, which falls under that threshold, though I don't know the exact dollar amount. I'll put it up on the screen. Collector booster boxes, we don't exactly know what the breakdowns are going to look like just yet. In Double Masters, you got like a foil etched card, and then you got X number of rares and or mythics, and then of course, borderless stuff. There's still a lot to wait and see about this set before we really know whether or not it's going to be worthwhile from that perspective. But the collector booster box is standard for what we've seen now with Double Masters. And whether or not you agree with the purchase, $60 price point, the Double Masters 2022 collector boosters were definitely a very hot commodity, and people liked them quite a bit. So it seems to be falling right in line with where they should be. Now, draft booster boxes. Of course, this is 24 packs, and a draft booster box is pre-selling right now on TCG Player for around $295. As of the making of this video, there were currently none available on Amazon for pre-order. I know they have gone up and been taken down as people have bought into the pre-orders, but we'll use a $300 price point as an average for what the draft boxes are going for. I actually believe Double Masters was a little bit cheaper than this. I think my draft box of Double Masters that I had pre-ordered last year was $255, so it's definitely an increase. But this is all pre-sale data, and there's no competition amongst sellers because it's basically an elite group of people who are able to list on TCG Player during the pre-sale, so the data can be skewed. But we can see about 300 is what the going rate is. Now, here's where things get a little bit wild. The set booster boxes are selling on Amazon right now for about $440, which is astronomically high for a product that isn't that different from draft boosters. Don't get me wrong, I know set boosters do include list cards and typically can have multiple rares and the art series cards, but they're almost $140 more than the draft boxes, and they don't contain any more packs. On TCG Player, the set boxes are going for around $375, which is a bit cheaper, but still nearly an $80 increase for not that much of a difference in product. Now, as someone who personally is not a huge fan of set boosters, I think draft and collector are probably a pretty solid way to go, just in general when sets are coming out. I liked that last year's Double Masters 2022 did not have set boosters. It was just draft and collector, catering to both player bases while not going overboard, and this remains to be seen what the set boosters are actually going to have that the other sets do not. Is there going to be some kind of special list inclusion in this where there's really good cards? But then in that case, you wonder why they wouldn't just put those in product. But looking at the price points here, the collector booster box at around $225, draft boosters around $300, and set boosters around $375. Now, of course, all of this is with limited data and information. We really don't know too much of what's going to be in the set, but with some of the previews that started months back, we did get an idea of a couple of reprints that are going to be in the set that are basically the backbone that they use to market it to vendors and to distributors and say, okay, yeah, pre-order your allotments of these. And I talked about this a little bit in a previous video, but I'll go over it here just for the sake of comparison. Jeweled Lotus is probably the biggest hitter that we know at this point, and it is a massively powerful commander card that I think definitely needs a reprint because it hadn't gotten one in almost 3 years. Jeweled Lotus, before the announcement of it getting a reprint, was over $100, and as of today is around $72 on TCG Player, so it's dropped a bit, but definitely nowhere near enough to be considered affordable for your casual player. The Dragon, of course, a very, very well-liked and well-known commander card for one of the best commander decks in general that there is. And he was exclusively, in a commander deck and then a secret layer, so very hard to acquire. Before the announcement a couple months back, he was about $65, and right now you can get one for as low as $42. So again, about a $20-ish drop. Not what people would consider budget, but I do hope that Dragon himself will end up being a bit more affordable with another reprint, even if that only means, dropping down to $25 or so. Another one we got was Personal Tutor, which is from Portal 3 Kingdoms, and is really only expensive, I think, because it was extremely scarce. Not that it's not a good card, it's just Mystical Tutor is pretty much better, and this card was around $80 before the announcement and is now around $55 as people scramble to try and sell off their copies, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of people buying Personal Tutor right now out of Portal until we know, what the ratios are for the set and what they look like. I just think people are going to wait because as the other tutors have gotten reprinted, they've dropped a lot. Imperial Seal was a $2,000 card before and then dropped to around $85, $90 where it currently sits. So Personal Tutor is probably going to end up falling below that threshold. But again, I'm just speculating and trying to get a sense of what we know so far and what's really driving these prices. Capture of Jingzhou was a $500 card before its announcement, but again, exclusively printed in Portal 3 Kingdoms, which had such a small print run, and this is actually a carbon copy of another card that, basically does the exact same thing. You can get this card for around $350 on TCG Player right now, but none have sold in months. There is no established sales data for this, and I would imagine that's a combination of the price being high and the demand just not being there. So while it is a good reprint and card, people may want to be able to get their hands on, I don't think this card's going to hold some insane value over time, just because it's probably going to be super accessible if they just make it a regular rare in Commander Masters. And then, of course, Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, which has been reprinted a couple times, is a really good utility card for green. It actually dropped the least. It was around $17 before the announcement. It is now around $14, but, neither of those prices are super high. And I imagine that this card, because every time it's been reprinted, it's been, right around the same price point, will probably stick around 10 to 15 when all is said and done. So right now, looking at these cards that have been announced for reprint and knowing that previews start tomorrow and that obviously things are, going to drastically shape one way or another, they could make a lot more announcements of some big hitter cards like Dockside Extortionist, which could get a double dip reprint, and, the cards we talked about in the video the other day, the Medallions and maybe the Fetch Lands and all kinds of things. I mean, there's a large pool of things to choose from, but obviously they're not going to reprint everything in the set because they want to save reprints for future products. Right now, Jeweled Lotus is the biggest chase, but could that change? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. We do know that there's also textured foil versions of some cards, including Jeweled Lotus, which admittedly does look absolutely gorgeous, but is probably going to command way too high of a price, for me to be interested in it. I think it's probably going to appeal more to whales or people that are cracking open boxes in mass, but you got to weigh, cost versus effectiveness, and Jeweled Lotus is already an expensive card, so it's not really worth paying like a 12x premium on it just to get it in special foiling, but they have to sell the set somehow, so that's kind of what we got going on there. So is it worth it? Well, it's hard to say because these prices are kind of egregious. I am not personally offended by the collector booster box prices. I've seen some other content creators are like, oh, it's horrible. Like, I guess it sort of comes from a place of accepting the fact that this is the reality we're in now, that these are what the premium collector boxes are going for. If they're around 200, it's not the end of the world for me. 50 a pack, you're getting a pretty good rate of pulls in terms of the higher value cards. I bought Double Masters 22 collector boxes and I pulled well. So personally, I'm not offended by the collector boxes, but the draft boxes are steep. Not knowing what's in it and not really knowing what, what it's going to look like in terms of the actual makeup. And they're already starting out higher than Double Masters 22, but we don't really know much at all. And only a couple of the reprints are big desired reprints. The other ones, I think, are big value because of scarcity. Like I said, doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to command the same level of value out of this set. Set booster boxes, though, I am out on entirely. I can't even see playing close to 400 on that. I have to imagine that hype is going to probably die down after time passes. We saw the same thing happen with Double Masters 2022, where after a while things really did start to bottom out, and even now the set is at one of its lowest points in terms of the actual cost that it's been in quite some time. So if you were ever wanting to get Double Masters, it's probably the time to do it, because a lot of the singles have fallen out. But Commander Masters, which is just the most recent comparison point that we have, I would stay so far away from those set booster box prices, it's not even funny. And maybe that will look silly, and they'll end up going up to like 600, but again, that's going to be indicative of like a massive problem with the pricing structure here, because obviously Wizards knows, people will spend money on these things, and, if you want to charge more for a premium product, but give us better cards, I'm okay with that. Like, I've accepted that that's kind of the way it is, that in order for a premium product to have a lot of good reprints and make the singles more accessible, that the sealed is going to command a premium. But let's not kid ourselves and pretend that the prices on these set boxes are even remotely where they should be. So for me, I would very much wait on pre-orders for draft and set boxes. That's just my personal opinion. Not telling you what to do with your money. I'm just giving my take on it. I myself am thinking about pre-ordering a collector box at $225, but I'm thinking about waiting and seeing if it goes a little bit lower, and maybe grabbing it around $200, because I do think there'll be enough in there that'll be worth opening one. But I guess we'll have to see, because really at this point right now, there's just not a lot out there. So that's the information. The other thing, of course, is the commander decks. And this is cool because the commander decks are each going to have 10 new cards, meaning this is the first master set that will have brand new cards introduced. And I don't believe those cards will actually be in the sets, unless they're maybe in collector boosters in some kind of alternate version, but they're not set exclusive. So we have 4 commander decks. We have Sliver Swarm, the Eldrazi deck, an enchantment deck, and then Planeswalker Party. Now, in terms of demand, the Sliver deck has absolutely been a home run for pre-sales. Right now, it's around $140 on TCG Player with sold pre-orders. I saw it on Amazon the other day for $85, but it looks like those pre-orders have now come down, so right now there are not any available. The Eldrazi deck, which is a massive, massive fan favorite archetype as well. Right now, about 100 and change on TCG, about 105, give or take. I saw it on Amazon for 100 as well, but it has since come down. So right now, there is no applicable market for that. And the enchantment deck, definitely a lot lower, around $73 on TCG Player and $85 on Amazon for pre-order. But Amazon does have pre-order guarantee, where if the price goes down before it comes out, you will get that adjusted price. You're not going to get that on TCG Player. So, kind of thinking about decisions and whatnot. And the Planeswalker Party deck is actually around $68, which is very cheap. But again, I don't know if these commander decks are supposed to be $50 like your regular commander deck, or if they're charging a premium on them because it's a quote-unquote premium product. We don't really have enough of a sample size or enough information to know, but I would imagine that given the fact that it is a premium product, that they are probably valuing these higher despite it being the same amount of cards, which you can argue about the merits of that business practice, but that's not what I'm here to do today. I'm just here to talk about whether or not, these are going to end up being worthwhile. So really what we're doing here is, this is part 1 of a 2-part video. We're setting the stage to look at where things are before any real leaks and reveals have come out, and we're going to look back at this after and say, okay, well, did the reveals come out and these got more demand because of how good they were, or are things going to start to drop? And of course, the set releases in August, so it's over a month away. Definitely, some time between now and when it actually drops, but there are a lot of different things to factor in, and I am going to be keeping an eye on this, as well as doing coverage throughout the week of the reprint announcements and reveals, so you guys can keep it locked here to the channel. Let me know in the comments right now, as of today, are you interested in this product? Is there anything you think is worth pre-ordering? Or, are you like me and thinking that outside of the collector boxes, really everything might end up being worth waiting on just because of the scarcity, and also just in general, like the price is hitting an absolute high because of hype. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Remember to subscribe for more content, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow with another video, because we're going to start covering their spoilers.